Hi, I'm Yolanda and this is Speak On. Today we're discussing sex addiction. Many people will have heard about it, but what do we actually know about it? When I was sourcing questions for this topic, the first question people asked, is it even real? Or is it an excuse? And then they admitted they really don't know what it is at all. We've heard of loads of celebrities like Russell Brand, David Duchovny, and Tiger Woods admit to suffering from sex addiction or going to rehab for it after cheating on their partners or to justify living a wild lifestyle. But has the celebrity process of releasing statements and publicly atoning made us dismiss what is actually a serious issue because it presents like an excuse? To find out more, I'm joined by a musician, video game producer, and the host of Let's Talk About Sex podcast, Jamie Finch. Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hello, I'm blinding. How are you? You good?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Nice.
How has your Rona experience gone? I haven't asked anyone for ages, so how's it going?
My Rona experience. Yeah, all right, not bad. Yeah, it kind of links into what we're talking about because obviously, like being a sex addict in a time where you're not allowed to go near anyone is a very interesting experience. But mine's gone really well actually. I'm a little bit. I've got a lot of guilt because of how much I'm enjoying it. I kind of don't want the world to go back to normal, which I feel bad for saying, but yeah. So I'm doing all right.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. You know, a few people have said that. Some people have got anxiety about the world going back to what it was like before.
Yeah.
And I get it. There were loads of things that weren't working for people. So it's kind of like finding out what happens next and how we take all the nice bits that we like from this and absolutely discard all the shit.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. We need to see it as, even though it's caused a lot of damage, I think we need to see it as a gift. We've all been gifted all this time and reflection and all this stuff, and we need to, yeah, definitely, like you say, learn from it and move forward, and kind of forget the rubbish bits because we'll get over those eventually. We'll work at it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a reset, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, we're going to crack on with this because we have quite a few questions to get through.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I'm going to ask you, what is sex addiction? Because when I asked other people, they really didn't know.
Yeah. So I really want to caveat like everything I'm going to say on this podcast with this is all just my personal experience of it. I'm not a trained counselor. I don't have any experience in dealing with other people's experience of this. This is all just coming from what I saw with dealing with myself for the past 3.5 years. So for me, sex addiction is like any addiction, it's when you're chasing something that is potentially damaging to you and people around you for unhealthy reasons. So how we've all kind of had a drink when we're sad because it cheers us up, and I think that's a nice parallel to draw when you're talking about sex addiction, because a surprising amount of us have had sex to feel better about ourselves. And when that gets a bit out of hand is when I would start saying that sounds like an addiction. And obviously there's a big spectrum of addiction, and it's not just sex either. There's sex addiction, there's love addiction, there's affection addiction, all this stuff. There's a huge spectrum of how this can kind of manifest. And yeah, your intro really excited me actually, because you highlighted the one thing that makes me want to talk about this publicly, because I don't want to talk about this shit. This is private.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like I should, because you said about it being an excuse, and we'll get into that into more detail. But yeah, it's something that comes up a lot. You mentioned Russell Brand. You said it was part of his stand-up routine, and it's kind of a running joke that he was a sex addict. And whenever I brought it up when I was going through it, at the peak of it, my counseling for it, and I would bring it up, it would always be met with like, oh yeah, my friend's ex cheated on her and said he had a sex addiction. That came up so many times. And someone saying, oh yeah, I met someone who also had a sex addiction and they got, they sought help and they dealt with it and, got counseling, never came up. So yeah, I think I answered that with too many words, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, and I think that is a really interesting point about it, is that when I asked people and they were like, we don't know what it is, but we know that blah blah blah, they could name people who they knew had it, but they realized that it was kind of like met with, I don't know, people kind of laughing it off, saying how serious is it really? Because we often hear, like, I think like even with David Duchovny when he split up with Tia Leone, it was like, well, I'm going into rehab for sex addiction. And I think the celebrity of it all kind of made people think this is an excuse, because we're so used to celebrities issuing statements to essentially revive their careers or to protect their careers. You don't know what is serious and what's true.
Yeah, and you see celebrities go through rehab and all that stuff, and that's great, and it's great that they're talking about it, and then they get their fancy press interview afterwards, and they talk about how great they're doing now and how it's been a good reset for their career and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not, downplaying anyone's experience with any kind of addiction, but yeah, sex addiction, I don't think is seen as serious as that. And a good example would be like if your friend came to you and said, I've got drunk every night for the last 3 weeks. There'd be a few alarm bells, right? Maybe tiny alarm bells, but you'd be like, oh, is that okay? Like, you're all right. If they said, oh, I've gotten laid every night for the last 3 weeks, there's a chance you'd be like, oh, they've got a high sex drive, or hey, you'd celebrate, And I think that while I don't think sex addiction can be, but for the most part, I don't think it's as serious as like alcohol or drug addiction, at least not directly through kind of health issues. But the underlying problems are definitely similar. There's a lot of crossover, and it needs to be taken really seriously. I think that kind of claim needs to be taken seriously.
Absolutely. Well, I remember when I used to listen to Russell Brand when he first used to have a podcast.
Yeah.
Around the time when loads of stuff happened and his podcast got cancelled. And I remember him constantly talking about sex. Yeah. Even it wasn't even part of the conversation they were having. And I remember just thinking, what is wrong with this man?
Yeah.
Because he was constantly talking about it, and he always like talked about every single story. Pretty much would talk about all the people he slept with, blah blah. And I was like, okay, all right. He does definitely. It presented like a problem, and because he had very public addiction issues, it just felt like a transference of, or an expansion of his wider addiction issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
With your own sex addiction, well, actually, first of all, I should say, are you one? Or were you one, or are you still one? How does that work?
A sex addict, the big old label on top of my CV.
Yeah.
I personally, I class myself as a recovering sex addict.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I always will be. I think it's something that I will have to be aware of for the rest of my life, or at least the rest of my sexual life. I might get 20 years off at the end when I can't get it up anymore. Here's hoping. So I class myself as a recovering sex addict. But it's definitely something that people can get over. I've had friends that have, feel like they've gotten over it and it's in their past now, which is great. It's amazing. But yeah, I kind of see it in the same vein as if somebody has a drinking problem and then they get over it, they have to constantly be aware of like not drinking, and the whole like, oh, I've been sober for this many years kind of thing is a big part of their life, and they have to take each day by day, as any rehab story will tell you. Each day is just on its own, you take it day by day. And so that's how I class myself, recovering sex addict. Yeah.
And was it an extension of any other like things that were happening in your life, or is it just really just sex addiction and nothing else? Or it's just
it's a hard question because my addiction came from needing to feel validated, right? So I craved kind of attention, especially from women, and I didn't feel like I was worth anything unless somebody wanted to have sex with me. So that bled into more parts of my life, probably in ways I wasn't fully aware of. I was in a band. Well, I am in a band, but it was my full-time thing for a lot of my 20s, which doesn't help when you have you need attention to feel good about yourself. Being in a band is a horrible, toxic thing to do because suddenly it's all about how many people can I make like me. So yeah, it kind of bled into that, I reckon, but I'm still kind of unpacking that. But I think in general it's a problem. It was a problem for me because I still can't think of a relationship that I had back then with a woman that wasn't sex related, or there was something flirtatious about it or something. I didn't feel complete unless somebody wanted to have sex with me.
Yeah. And what were the signs that you had a sex addiction? Like, how did it manifest itself for you?
So it's a bit of a weird one for me. I had this whole thing of like, so I've always, in my early 20s, I was a prolific cheater. So I was cheating on basically all my relationships. The longest I went without was probably like, I was in a relationship for like 2 years, I think, and then I cheated. So it was really bad. I was a proper arsehole. So that's part of it. But I always just thought like, oh, high sex drive, unhappy relationships. It's just that, and I'm a young guy, and it's normal to do this stuff. I come from like, my family background there's a lot of like affairs going on, cheating. My mum does split up because of cheating and stuff like that. So I think that's probably a big part of it. And yeah, so the signs for me, I was always like, well, one day I'm going to meet the girl of my dreams, and my brain's going to switch into monogamy, and I'll be done, and I'll never want to cheat again, and that'll be it. And I didn't believe in soulmates or anything like that. I just thought like there'll be someone that I meet that makes me want to change. And I met a girl who I didn't believe in soulmates. The second I met her, I was like, oh, she's my soulmate. That's exactly what this is. And I was like, this is it. This is the relationship for me forever. And my brain wasn't flicking into monogamy like I always thought it would. And I was like, hello, this is it. This is when you want to stop fucking other girls. And it didn't happen. So I went and got counseling. I have a long history of counseling for all sorts of things like anxiety, depression, anger management and stuff. So counseling is definitely my go-to thing. I love counseling. I'm a big advocate for it. Therapy and talking therapy and all that stuff. So I went and got counseling and I was like, I need you to make me monogamous. Because I've met the girl of my dreams and I can't imagine, being with only her for the rest of my life. And I had about 6 months of therapy trying to make me monogamous.
Oh, wow.
And
how did that go?
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Okay.
Didn't quite work out. No, I'm not sure it's something you can do.
Yeah, I mean, when you said it, I was thinking that doesn't sound like a treatment that's available.
No. I think most of the counselors that I spoke to they had experience dealing with like cheating partners, so they would deal with couples where there'd been extramarital affairs and stuff, and they would help them get back from that and find out why did you do that, and you actually do like love your wife or husband, and it was that kind of thing. So I was trying that. So kind of like preemptive extramarital affair therapy, I guess.
Yeah.
It didn't go too well. And basically we got down to the bottom of it, which was after months and months, which was I'm not having sex because I'm horny or because I got a high sex drive. I'm having sex because it's how I feel good about myself. And if I have a loving relationship, which I'm capable of, like I can be in love, and I was in that time, and I have been since. And it's great. Like I get everything, all my needs met from it. But I feel lesser. I don't feel like I like myself as much because I'm not going around and getting laid. So that was my big kind of warning sign, and that was how I got diagnosed. And basically, long story short, we determined that it was a validation thing, and I needed to learn ways to like myself that weren't from people fancying me, basically.
Yeah.
Which sounds funny to say now because I've come a long way, and it's
Yeah.
quite a funny thing. But at the time, that's all I understood. If they don't want to sleep with me, then I don't like myself.
That's so sad. At the time when people did like reject you, how did that make you feel? What was your reaction to that?
It made me feel worthless.
Yeah.
And then I would just try and jump onto the next thing, get onto the next person quickly, like, because any sad feeling that came in I could bury if someone hot fancied me and I was getting with someone hot. So if someone rejected me, I'd be like sad, I'd be like, but if I quickly get with someone else, I'll forget about that. Which is true, and it's probably true for a lot of kind of people that have healthy relationships with sex. If you get rejected, it never feels nice. No one's going to be happy about it. And best way to get over someone is to get under someone else, which was always my mantra. But that's what happens to those feelings. They don't disappear; they're getting buried inside you, as well as all the other things. So yeah, and it got to the point where like I was like, oh, I'm having a stressful day, I'm gonna go and get laid, which is fine. I think same way if you're having a stressful day, you can go to the pub and get smashed or whatever. That's fine. But if it's your go-to remedy and it's the only remedy you have, then it's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So how old were you when this started happening, or when you started noticing that something was wrong?
Well, when it started happening, I mean, when I started cheating, I was like fucking like 17 probably, and like never really broke out of that cycle. So there's that. But when I started realizing it was a problem, I was 20, let's say 26, 27-ish. Yeah. I should have spotted it a long time before then. Like I should have definitely stopped at like 22 and been like, why am I cheating on these people that I love dearly? Like,
but what do you know at 22?
Oh yeah. What do you know at 29? I'm still learning shit every day.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like at 22, I was an idiot. Everyone was like, but everyone's a bit of an idiot at that point, aren't they? And that you're going to have huge blind spots with these things. Our brains are literally still developing until we're like 25 years old.
Yeah.
So what do you know? And also in a culture where that stuff is normalized as well. I mean, you're considerably younger than me, but when I was younger, around that age, lad behavior that was kind of I'd say, you know what? I'm going to say it. Look, everyone knows how old I am. I'm 39. So when I was
39, oh my God, you look
am.
Amazing. Jesus.
Thanks. Everyone on the podcast, go and look at my pictures. No,
oh my God, 39.
But when I was growing up in the 90s, and that point I was a teenager, that was when lad culture had come into its own. So anyone doing that kind of stuff or anyone behaving like that super normal. That I was like a bit of a ladette. I get it. It's like you drink beer, you go out, you do all these wild things.
Mm,
It was so much part of the culture. So
mm.
when you were younger, I suppose you kind of can't be that hard on yourself about
Oh
noticing it
yeah, totally,
beforehand,
yeah.
because it's like what you're doing was the normalized thing, I
Well, it
guess.
was normal, yeah, totally,
Yeah.
yeah. And as a guy, this is quite, it's on my mind a lot at the moment. Obviously, with all the, hashtag not all men bollocks that's going around, and this whole discussion of like what we're teaching our boys, and what we're kind
Mm.
of what they're learning to be normal, is normal. I definitely think back to that a lot, and yeah, the sex stuff and value being put on sex is a massive thing. And really dangerous for guys and boys. For boys, I was a boy when I was taught that, like if I went out to play football and
Mm.
then for a few hours I'd come home, my dad would be like, "Where you been? Round a girl's house?" And if I was like, "No, I've been
Yeah.
playing football," it felt like a lesser answer. Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, go into like the uni years. I was like in a band full time around that time, so
Mm.
really bad place to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all about fans, and it's all about not the rock and roll lifestyle I don't like talking about, because I don't think it really exists anymore. That's a thing from like the 70s and 80s. It's not really a thing anymore. Bands are quite lame these days. We're all vegan, and like we like to get early nights and drink lots of water, so it's not a thing like that. But there's definitely like it's a culture of kind of you're traveling a lot, and there's a lot of people looking at you, attention and stuff. So yeah, it's a big thing, and the lad culture thing in particular is something that it's the main thing that makes me want to talk about this publicly, because I think that I was lucky in that I didn't have many laddie friends, but the few that I did have definitely encouraged this behavior. Like
Mm.
definitely, that we had WhatsApp groups where like if you got with a girl, you would take a picture of like her bed when you were there and send it
Oh my
in.
God.
Yeah, and
No.
like or like her like asleep. Nothing like too bad. Like they wouldn't
Yeah.
like take pictures of faces or anything, but like just kind of like, oh look, I'm in bed with someone. And it was like every time that happened, and there was a WhatsApp group where there was like loads of these pictures being sent, and it was kind of like a woo, well done kind of thing.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, sex is something that we can celebrate, and getting laid is cool. That's fun. It's part of a night out, and it's I'm okay with that. Like I think that's great, but um we need to just be careful. We need to just check ourselves, and be aware of what we're doing, and not put too much value on it, like not. My big question is like, if you and your friends went out right on a night out, and you're all done up, like you're looking good, and you go out, you spend the whole night dancing, whatever, getting drunk, and then if you go home without pulling, how do you feel? Because I had friends that would feel like their night was sort of a bit of a failure if they didn't get laid at the end of it.
That's so
Girls in
sad.
particular.
That's so sad, because that wasn't necessarily when I was growing up. There was lad culture, but it was very much about partying. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Also around the time of Skins, very reflective of our lives in terms of
Yeah.
just going out partying, that kind of thing. But it was more the party aspect. If you didn't get laid, it doesn't matter, because you'd already had a good time. So
Yeah.
that wasn't like the pre-wet. That wasn't like the get goal for the night, or a thing that we absolutely had to
Yeah.
pick up our
Yeah.
list. That sounds so. That's really sad.
Yeah, and it's the kind
Yeah.
of thing that I want people to be aware of, is all that,
Mm.
I want people to just be aware that this is a thing that should be taken seriously. And if your friend doesn't feel like they've been fulfilled or had a good night because they haven't gotten laid, guy or girl, I think this applies both ways.
Mm.
Then I think it's just something we should be aware of, because like the same thing, if you like, I keep drawing parallels to like drinking addiction, alcohol addiction. If you go out and like if your friend can't have fun without getting absolutely shit faced, you would
Mm.
step in, right? You'd be like, oh, this is a bit, why do you need
Absolutely.
to get that drunk? We can have a nice time. Same thing with getting laid. Like, I think there is a surprising amount of people that would feel like their night isn't finished until they get laid.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, you talked about you're talking about obviously sex addiction from your point of view and from what you understand about it. But are you aware of what other ways it can manifest itself? Like, for example, well, you've already talked about like love addiction, affection
Mm.
addiction, that kind of thing. But do you have to be having sex to qualify as a sex addict? Because obviously there are lots of different sex apps.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I mentioned the spectrum at the start. On that is also porn addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to masturbate and come without watching porn? Because that could be a sign of something. Like it's a sign that you're not using your imagination, or maybe it will transfer to like actual sex. Maybe you can't do it unless it's like super porny.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, sex like they have in porn is fine, but I think you need to be aware of like what you need. And yeah, I mentioned affection and love addictions. Love addictions is a big thing. We have SLA in, I think, the UK. I know it's in London. I'm pretty sure it's all in the UK. SLA, SLAA, which is Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous. I might have said
Okay.
that wrong, but you know what I mean. Sex
Yeah.
and love addiction are in the, you know, are in the thing. Love addiction is a thing which, you know, I guess would mostly manifest itself as like as soon as someone's out of a relationship, they're in another one and in another one, you know, which I've definitely done in the past.
Yeah.
And yeah, they all kind of, I wouldn't want to talk too much about how other people's manifest because it's all different. You know, there'll be a bunch of sex addicts that do completely different things to me and, you know, have done for completely different reasons. So yeah, it manifests itself in different ways. But I think the general, you know, any addiction can probably be, you know, put under an umbrella of there are problems inside that you're masking with other, you know, damaging kind of habits.
Yeah. And for you, was there like a particular point or incident where you thought, okay, I really need to? I know you were saying before, it's like you're with someone, you thought you should be, you thought your monogamy switch should go on. So, but what was the point at that? What's the point that made you think that? What was that kind of defining moment? Was it like you looked at the person you loved, you looked at someone else, and you thought, I really want to have sex with that other person, and then you were like, this is insane. Like, what happened?
Pretty much, yeah. I think the person that we're talking about here, I guess, you know, we got together, we fell in love as always happens, and we kind of would talk about our future together, and I would get excited about it, which was nice. It was quite rare for me to do that, but then the excitement would kind of dip when I would think, oh, but like this would be it. Like I am 20, I think I was 26, 27 at the time, and like that, and that's it. Like I would be stopped. Do you know what I mean? My like adventures. That's the thing as well. I see it as like my one adventure in life is how many people I sleep with. I did see it like that anyway. Would come to an end here, and that's it. From 26 onwards, I'm in this relationship, and that's it. And she was very strong-willed and very set on the fact that she's monogamous, which is great. Like a really powerful thing to know, you know, at any age. You know, to know like what your kind of, you know, relationship preferences are. And she knew she was monogamous, so I very much knew that like if I keep going down this path, like this is it forever. And part of me was excited, and part of me was like, no, I won't be able to get laid anywhere else, which is stupid, right? But
Yeah.
you know, it's a big thing. And yeah, quickly on that, so I won't derail it too much, but so I went into my like, you know, monogamy conversion therapy, like
Yeah.
make me monogamous. And the result of that was that I'm probably not monogamous.
Yeah.
I identify more as polyamorous because I'm
That was going to be my next question. I was
yeah.
thinking, so is that something like ethical non-monogamy?
Non-ethical monogamy,
You
yeah.
know what I'm
Just
trying to
cheating
say?
and not telling anyone
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. I definitely did my fair share of that, yeah, when I
Yeah.
was a twat in my early 20s. Yeah, so that was the kind of thing. It went into I've always had this thing since I was like 14, where I can be madly in love with someone, have a girlfriend, have a partner, and love them entirely, 100%. And then when I meet someone else, if I start to fall for them and I start to love them, the first one doesn't diminish at all. So I
Okay.
have 100% here on one person, and the other person is building up to 100%. And I never love the first less, and
Okay. That's
that is a
interesting.
big thing. And for me, that makes me use the whole like polyamorous tag thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the surprising thing there, I guess, for a lot of people that I talk to about this is I'm not massively into polyamorous relationships. I've only
Yeah.
tried it like once or twice and hated it, and it went really
What
badly.
didn't you like about it?
Well, I
'Cause
wasn't
it
very
sounds
good at
like
it.
it's right up your Strasser.
You'd
So
think so, right? You'd
yeah.
think like, oh yeah, just shove him in an Amish
Yeah.
town and give him 7 wives. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's polygamy, by the way, not polyamory. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say
Exactly. Yeah.
that.
And is
I
it?
should
Hold on. Is that
differentiate.
the Amish or is that the Mormons?
I think they both do it.
Do
I know the
they?
Amish do it. Yeah, I think Mormons.
Interesting.
Do Mormons do it? I don't know.
Yeah, I know
I'm gonna
Mormons do
Google
because I
that.
watched the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So
Ah, okay,
yeah.
right. Oh shit, yeah, they both do it. There you go.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Derailed.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, cool. So I'm gonna Google that afterwards. What was I saying? I've lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah, so
You didn't like polyamory, as it
yeah,
were.
not for me. Yeah, I tried it, and I'm not very good at it. It's like a lot of the polyamorous community sort of see monogamy and monogamous people as like air quote like normies. And you
Hmm.
know, a lot of them, the more extreme versions of people are sort of like, yeah, they're just like brainwashed by the system, man. They think that monogamy is the only way.
Yeah.
Monogamy is a way, is an option, and if you're into that and you can make it work, hell yeah, go for it. I think that's great. I think that's beautiful, and I'm actually a little bit jealous of you. But
Hmm.
polyamory is another thing. It's not like it solves some problems that monogamy has, you know, in that, oh, I
Hmm.
can have multiple partners. I don't have to commit to one, you know, set of genitals for the rest of my life. That's great, but it brings its own problems in as well. And I wasn't fully ready for that. And it's quite a
Hmm.
hard thing to get right. It requires a lot of communication. You have to be really grown up, and you have to really be like aware of your own emotions and stuff, because it's quite a it's quite a traumatic thing to, for some people to think about your partner going with someone else.
Hmm.
But it can be done. I just wasn't ready for it, I think, when I tried, and it went horribly wrong and really bad and put me off for a long time. So back to your question quickly. So the whole like monogamy conversion therapy ended up in me being like, oh, I'm polyamorous. That's what it is. And my partner at the time, was very monogamous, and that was that. And that was kind of, that wasn't the only reason it ended. There were many, many, many reasons why it ended, but that was one of them. And that's the one I take comfort in, because it's like, okay, well, we both went off on this journey. She discovered some things. She had counseling as well and discovered some things. I discovered that I was probably not monogamous. And I need to go and, explore that now. So.
Interesting. I mean, because polyamory is not something that I have ever wanted to practice, because also it seems like too much work. I'm sorry, having one relationship is hard enough. How many more do I need? Like, so I always like tip my hat to those people, because I'm like, well done for even. I mean, truly, one person it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
like,
I feel that way about monogamy. I'm like, so much work. How do you do that? Yeah, you have to make one person feel happy all the time.
It's only one. That's only one. You don't have to make him happy all the time. Their happiness is their responsibility.
Yeah, totally.
But I mean, like, but that's just one person. Imagine you got two people. Oh my God, I couldn't with the pressure. I'd be like, nah, sorry, everybody has to leave. This is too much.
Yeah.
Everybody get out.
But then you got to remember, like, in a lot of setups, like, you have two people, but then those two people have other people as well. So you could see the work as half,
like a network.
Yeah, it's like a support
network. You're just all sharing the load.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, literally sometimes. Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, all right.
Sorry, I had to make it sordid, didn't I? We were talking about love and nice things, and I made a comment.
Again, not for me necessarily. I don't think.
But that's great. That's powerful. Yeah. Like, I love that. I love that you know that, and that is brilliant.
Also, I don't even share food, so I am not sharing my partner. I'm just like.
Yeah. No, good. And that's the thing. A lot of polyamorous people look down on monogamous people because they think that their way is the way, and I hate that. I think that's another thing as well. I don't actually like the polyamorous community based on my limited experience. They're not very nice.
Just a mild attack on them.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of kind of, we are the progressed. We are the we're the future of like, and that maybe they're right. I think our grandkids will have a lot of polyamorous and open relationships and stuff. But monogamy is a very powerful and beautiful thing, I think, and I still hope that I experience it properly one day. It's basically, I think there's a menu. In relationships, there's a menu, and monogamy is one thing, polyamory is another thing, and threesomes are a side dish. Like, there's a whole menu. They're all valid,
Just pick whatever you want and live your life, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's fair enough. So back to sex addiction.
Yeah, sorry, I've gone.
So that's all right. That made me laugh. So what kind of treatment did you receive, or are you receiving? I know you're like a big advocate for therapy, but what other things like are available to you?
Yeah, so I went through, and a big part of me with therapy as well is if someone is looking to try therapy, or if they've had a bad run-in before, I think a big part of it is trying different counselors or therapists or whatever you want to call them. Wherever you're from, it changes the word. And because I think it's really important that you click with them. And I've had awful counseling experiences with people that I just didn't get on with, didn't click with, didn't like their methods, didn't agree with what they were saying. And I changed a lot until I settled on the one that I'm with now, Heather, and I've been with her for like 2.5 years now. So you can see, it's like, you need to find one that really works for you. But back at the start when I was, seeking help for sex addiction, there were a few methods. Some counselors recommended celibacy. So to take, some said 6 months, some said a month, and in between, of just no sex, no masturbating, and to really like break the cycle, which I decided it wasn't for me. I was like, no, I don't know about that. Don't know about that, but I can totally see it working. And the idea is that one counselor explained it to me, it kind of breaks the link between, feeling horny and acting on it.
Yes.
They like to really train your brain to kind of separate that, because there was definitely a stage where I was like, oh, I'm horny, I have to come now, whether it's with someone or on my own, I have to do that now. And they taught you to kind of like sit with the horniness, which is fucking excruciating. For me, it was anyway, like to kind of sit there at night and be like, oh, I really want to wank.
How long did you last?
Well, I didn't do full on celibacy, but I cut back massively. And I'm probably still in that phase now, actually. So I never stopped. For me, it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't quite work. I didn't I didn't like the idea. Maybe I'm just rubbish. I didn't like the idea of doing that. But yeah, I cut back massively, and it was just sort of like, there's a lot of like thought exercises, a lot of if you do meditation, a lot of like self-awareness and making sure you're in the moment and stuff like that. And if I wanted to go and like hook up with someone, I would have to sort of stop and really think about why I was doing it, and what are the reasons for me doing this. And 9 times out of 10 for me, it was like, oh, it's because I'm sad, or I think I'm ugly today, so I'll go get laid and that'll make me not feel ugly. So that was my thing. And there's all different kinds of methods, to deal with that. But talking therapy seems to be the one to go for. And like I said, SLA, SLAA, they have sort of the equivalent to like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, which I've never been to. And I was thinking about going to it. And I heard some stories that apparently everyone goes there, you all sit in a circle and talk about your experience with sex addiction. And then at the end, you exchange numbers as you do in like Alcoholics Anonymous. But in SLA, they all fuck each other.
Oh, no. No.
I was like, that sounds like the
I'm
worst
sure there
idea.
are some groups that I'm sure that isn't happening.
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
no, yeah, totally, no. They're obviously not all doing it, but it was like the fact that that's even a possibility makes me really not want to go.
You a little bit, yeah. You just have to make sure you go and never give your number to anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't help that I heard about SLA through a really hot girl that I know. And she said, oh, I go to this thing. And I was like, that sounds like the worst idea. Because if I saw you and knew you were a sex addict, I would definitely make a move. So it sounds really like awful, but maybe I've got like a very weak will. But that's the thing. So yeah, it seems like talking therapy is the way to go about it. And to be honest, addiction is just a manifestation of underlying problems. And I think any therapy goes to those problems, whether you're there for addiction or you're just there because you got anxiety, depression. I had anger issues in my early 20s, and they all came back to the same thing, which is that you don't like yourself, and that's why you're doing this. So I think that's a thing. But then on the question, I think you're about to ask this actually, but I'm going to jump in and answer it anyway before you can. The whole what was it? So to kind of buck the trend of like sex addiction, we have to kind of we have to give ourselves a healthy relationship with sex, because obviously with alcohol addiction, you can learn to just never drink again. And with drugs, you can learn and you work on never having drugs again, and you are like gone. They're out your system and you're never going back. Obviously, you can't do that with sex or food. You can't do that with food either. You have to have a healthy relationship with it, which is interesting and really hard. And it means that some people that know about my experience with sex addiction that I end up having sex with ask me about it. They're like, are you actually like allowed to do this? Which is interesting, because it's like, well, I'm not just gonna like never have sex again. Like, I need to do that. One day I want babies, so I need to learn how to do it healthily, so yeah, it's not as kind of you're not just going to cut out sex. You have to learn how to have a healthy relationship, which is scary. That's the scary part of this whole process, because it's like, you're not just going to get rid of this thing. You have to fight the thoughts and urges that you have, and make sure you're doing it for the right reason. And I've not had sex because I felt like I've needed it for about 3 years. I have a date somewhere in my calendar so I can count from it. But that's a big deal for me. And it makes me just have to reflect every time I go to have sex.
And so how does that work for like dating or relationships, etc.? Like you were saying that some people have asked you beforehand. So like if you met someone, you're going on a date, do you wait quite a few dates before anything happens between you? How are you regulating this?
So this is going to sound unhealthy at first, but let me get to it. Let me get to the end. But I don't do dates. I haven't dated in years. I've dated partners. So when I've been in a relationship, we go for dates and stuff, like date nights and stuff like that. But I haven't been on like first dates in years. And that's because I'm aware of what I want, and I know like when I want relationships and when I just want like casual hookups that are fun. So if I meet with someone on an app, a match on an app, and somebody just wants to like, have a one night stand or whatever, or, just casual stuff, I'll be like, yeah, cool, we can do that. I don't do the dating thing. Like, I don't want to spend a whole evening, and loads of money and getting to know someone who like, we're just here for the same reason. We just want to have sex. And then for me, relationships tend to like blossom out of that afterwards. Like last year, like 3 of my best friends in the world were from like hookups on dating apps. So I kind of do it a bit backwards. So I don't do the dating thing first. I have sex with someone, and then if we like each other, we end up hanging out, and then usually we end up becoming friends, or it can turn into a relationship or something. So I don't do the dating thing. But obviously with that kind of lifestyle of the, instant hookup thing, I need to be super careful and make sure that I'm doing it for the right reasons. And yeah, that's kind of a private thing to me. I don't sort of tell everyone that, because I don't think it matters. If you wanted to go on a date and you didn't want to drink, it's not really their business why you don't want to drink. You know what I mean? And as long as I'm doing things right by me and I'm healthy, it doesn't really matter. And then also the general consensus, if someone asks about it and is worried about why I might be having sex with them, not worried, but they're kind of checking in. The answer is always, well, I made sure that I'm doing this for the right reasons, and the reason is that I want to do it and it'll be fun and I like you. It's not because I hate myself and I'm trying to cover up a whole. And actually, it's quite a nice reason to have sex with someone, I think.
That's what I'm thinking. Hating yourself is possibly one of the worst reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why are we doing this? Oh, because I'm having a bad day and you'll distract me from it. It's not what you want to hear.
Thanks. I feel like, she's like, you just tell him, I feel like shit. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned apps there. I wonder, I mean, I don't know, because I suppose you're kind of newer to the being a sex addict because age, etc.
Yeah.
Is it harder for people to regulate their sex addiction or kind of recover from it or stay in recovery with the way that apps are now? Like this access to everything and everybody in a different way. How difficult does it make it?
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a really good question, because I can't answer fully because I don't get many matches. I don't do very well on dating apps. So I'm not exactly like, my addiction is really hard because of all these girls wanting to get with me. I don't have that problem. But yeah, you're so right. Like our connection to other people that are looking for stuff is so immediate, and it's the most immediate it's ever been in the history of mankind. I guess like in the kind of casual sex boom in the 60s, you still had to go to bars or festivals, and like find people that want to sleep with you, and like there was work involved. But now it's like, you just sit while watching a film and you swipe, and all this kind of potential sex is really immediate. So yeah, I can imagine it being a hard thing for anyone that gets matches on apps. Of which one
on
I am
apps
not.
as well, I'm guessing on apps you're being clear that you don't want anything, so I can imagine that's a real thing, because I know lots of people that when they're on apps they're very clear about their intentions, and then when guys just want to hook up, you're like, go away.
And that's great. No, I love that though.
It's cool, because I suppose it eliminates also you ever having to have any of those conversations about well, this is all I want.
Totally. I think that's great. I actually got banned from Hinge because my profile said that I wasn't looking for anything serious.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And obviously Hinge is like the app that's designed to be deleted. It's the relationship app, which is cool. I love that. But
it's a horrible app though. God.
I got well, now I've been banned from it. I've got issues with it. But and
how did you know you were banned? Sorry, did they just message you and say you are not allowed here? Get out,
I was
Jamie.
literally no warning. They were like, get out. They were like, you're banned. And then I emailed them asking why, and they said that like the terms and conditions were that you have to be looking for a serious relationship while you're on here. Which I was really annoyed by, because when I had that in my profile, it literally said like, I'm here for casual hookups, maybe friends or whatever. Oh no, actually no, it used to say fucking followed by passionate friend zoning, which was a big thing for me at the time. And I would get loads more matches, and half of them would be giving me abuse of that's disgusting, you shouldn't be on here, and they're obviously the ones that reported me to Hinge. And the other half would be like, oh, thank God you've said this, because it saves so much time, and like they know what I'm after. And obviously who I'm not hearing from are the people that didn't match me, because they saw that, which is great, because I'm not wasting their time. They're not going to have a conversation with me and then it turns out that I'm a fuckboy. Like I'm saving so much time. So I think Hinge should love it.
Aren't there
special apps? Yeah, there are. The problem is they're not as good. Like there's I won't name drop apps, but there are other apps that like have less of a user base that are for hookups, I guess. So if you want to meet the most people, you want to be on the mainstream ones, right? You want to be on Tinder and Hinge. But they don't like you being honest about your intentions, which I think is really sad, because I think a lot of people's time's getting wasted. I think a lot of people's feelings are getting hurt as well. Because, it's not hard for me. It wouldn't be hard for me to just hide my intentions, pretend that I want a relationship on Hinge, go for a date, have sex, and then just fucking ghost them. It's not hard to do that. But me being honest is, I'm trying to save everyone time, and not upset anyone, because it's horrible to match with someone and realize you've got different intentions,
I don't know. When I was on dating apps and stuff before, people were pretty honest about it, and then I
That's
would,
good.
you know, that if you're going on Tinder, you're more likely to get guys that just want that, whereas Bumble is like slightly more serious. But even then, it still has a category where it's like when people just want that, then you can just eliminate people really easily, so
Yeah,
no one
which is
has to
great.
like.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but
totally.
I just
I
don't
think
like
all
Hinge
apps.
anyway. So
Yeah, I think all apps should have that. I think they should be super strict about it. Like, what are your intentions? And you only
yeah.
match with people that match your intentions. Like,
Mm.
and then obviously you'll get guys who, you know, pretend they want relationships and then end up ghosting you, whatever. You'll always get
Mm.
that. That's just dating. That's just humans. But yeah, I think apps should be more open to that. And
Yeah.
yeah, the fact that I'm still salty about Hinge banning me, because
I can
I think
tell.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's sad. I think it's really sad because I was super open about my thing, and like a lot of people hurled abuse at me because of it,
Yeah.
which I thought was funny. And the people that matched me were like, "Thank God, I don't have to
Mm.
go on a date with you. This is great."
Yeah.
Like,
No,
so
that's really interesting because it feels like it's marketed as a serious app. So I was surprised
yeah,
that you went there, but then yeah. But
yeah.
I
But I
get
just
it
went
though.
there
But you
because
suppose you
everyone's on
can
it, right?
see
But
exactly. Yeah, you just want to
yeah,
check it out, the
yeah,
landscape.
yeah, totally. So
Well, maybe there's the gap in the market. Like
yeah,
Jamie, create the app.
yeah.
Um, so what myths would you like to dispel about sex addiction?
Okay, so I wouldn't say it's a myth because it's completely true, and you've mentioned it. You brought it up in your intro, that guys use it as an excuse.
Mm.
Now, that's not a myth, but I think it's something that needs to stop, and I think it was something we need to take very seriously. So my experience, I know all about people bringing it up as, you know, as an excuse for, they get caught cheating, they say they have a sex addiction and stuff.
Hmm.
And some of those people are absolutely telling the truth, and they need help. I need a lot of help, and I am very willing to help people with that.
Mm.
My best friend, she was like my sister at the time, years ago, got cheated on by her boyfriend, and
Hmm.
cheated. She got cheated on. Let's not sugarcoat
Hmm.
it. He cheated on her, and he obviously knew that I was talking about this publicly, sex addiction, and so it would have gotten, you know, into his head that she was aware of it. And he said he has a sex addiction, that's why he cheated. And all of her friends were like, you know, he's a scumbag, get rid of him, da da da. And when she told me that, I felt like I was in a fork in the road where I either had to join her friends and be like, yeah, he's a scumbag, he just got caught,
Mm.
or I had to take the path that I'm trying to put people on, and I am on myself, of, well, if that's the case, let's take it really fucking seriously.
Mm.
And I went down that path and kind of was like, right, well, here's what he needs to do. He needs to go talk to people. He needs to do this. And a big part of that is they usually recommend that you're not in a relationship, or at least like you take a break from your relationship while you're dealing with it, because
Yeah.
obviously, you know, you're going up and down, you're working on things. It's not fair on your partner to suddenly, you know, dictate their sex life based on yours. Obviously, that can't always be the case. If you're like married, you know, it's gonna be hard to do that. But I said, like, yeah, you know, if this is going to happen, he needs to take space, and that's what happened. She gave him space. He went away. He got therapy and stuff. And then the last I heard of it, he kind of disappeared into the ether. But the last I heard of it, he had about 3 weeks, and then told her he was cured, and, you know, it was all good, and they could get back together, which I really hope is true. Like, really,
Mm.
really hope it's true. It'll be a miracle if he's gotten over his, you know, his addiction in 3 weeks, and I
Yeah.
really hope that's true. But, you know, obviously, you and I are both sat here like, yeah, is that
Mm.
true?
Yeah.
So yeah, not entirely a myth, but it's something
Yeah.
that I really want it to be taken seriously, because some people were struggling here
Mm.
and are ruining relationships. I've ruined many relationships that I would probably still be in now, very happy, and, you know, would be building a life together. But I didn't catch it soon enough, and I ruined it by, you know, not being in charge of my own emotions and my sex drive and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I think if somebody is saying it, let's not automatically assume it's an excuse. Let's work on it. You know, if your friend came to you saying they have a problem with drinking, you wouldn't be like, yeah, you love a drink. Whee! You know, you'd
Mm.
be like, okay, let's get help then. So that's what I kind of want to, the message I want to get out there is, yeah, if someone says it, let's stop guys, and girls do it as well. They're actually
Mm.
more female sex addicts than guys, according to some statistics that I saw.
Ah.
But we always hear stories about guys, and I
That's what I
think
was
that's
going to say.
because
You only ever hear male celebrities. When I looked it up, I just got a list of male celebrities. I didn't get
yeah,
one female celebrity, but I
yeah,
suppose women can't say that kind of thing because truly, then because of the patriarchy, they'll be
yeah.
like, "You're trash, and you're never coming back from this." Bye.
Or worse, they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, really? Tell me more." You know,
Yeah.
a woman says, "I'm addicted to sex." Like, oh yeah, that's kind of hot. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
it's yeah. So, yeah, it needs to be taken super seriously.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm gonna say it, but I want boys to stop using it as an excuse.
Mm.
Stop being a dick. I was a dick for a long time. Never used it as an excuse because I didn't really know what it was until I was diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, if you think you have a sex addiction, you need to go and fucking sort it out, mate, and you need to not take your partner through that.
Mm. Absolutely. That's really good advice. Um, so is your experience the reason you started your podcast?
So
Or was it just
no.
because you're like, I want to talk about sex because,
Yeah, so
yeah.
this is a funny story. So no, I started my podcast because I am super vanilla and have always been super vanilla. And I met a friend who was really kinky and into loads of crazy stuff. And I loved hearing her tell me stories about this stuff. And it was kind of subconsciously opening my mind to more kinkier things.
Hmm.
I'm still pretty vanilla. I like to say Madagascan vanilla. So like still vanilla, but like
Yeah.
like good vanilla, That's where I'm at.
A little bit more exciting and a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. Slightly above vanilla, but still
Yeah.
very vanilla. So yeah, and I'd love hearing her stories about it, and it was making me kind of open up to this new world. And we did the whole standard thing of like, oh my god, we should make a podcast. And she ended up getting a really important job for a charity, so she couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I ended up collecting stories for like 3 years, and then I started releasing it. And we were weeks away from releasing it, and I was in the middle of my like sex addiction, work. And we were about to release it, and I was literally like, I'm just gonna like put out a sex podcast without talking about my experience with addiction. Like this doesn't feel right. I felt like a fraud, and I was fully ready to go. Like I had the artwork, I had the episodes ready, it was all scheduled, and I was like, no, I need to like emergency do a sex addiction episode because I can't put this out without talking about it because it's a big part of me, and I'll be a fraud if I did. So
Yeah.
I asked my counselor if we could record one of our counselling sessions, and then
Oh, wow.
that's episode 3.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
I'm
it
going to
wasn't
go back
because
and
of it.
listen to that then.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard all the stuff now. I've just told you. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting because my counselor's there, and obviously she's giving like an actual professional opinion, which is way more useful than what I'm saying on here. But yeah, go check that out. But yeah, so it wasn't because of the sex addiction, but it's now completely intertwined with it. And then when other lovely podcasts like yourself ask me to come talk, it's the one thing that I want to talk about because, while I love talking about sex and it's what my podcast is all about, it's about, fun stories to do with sex and, relationships and love and, sexual trauma and mental health and all that stuff. I love talking about that stuff. But if I'm given the opportunity to go talk elsewhere, I want to shout about sex addiction for the reason that I gave before. I want us to start taking it seriously, and I want fuckboys to stop using it as an excuse and to go get help if they think they have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Well, because when I was putting together like love, sex, and relationships, this is the current theme that we're on, and it's running it finishes in March before we have a little break, and then we start a brand new theme. And when I was working with the producer, Abby, to pull stuff together, I kind of gave her a list, and this was on the list. And I was like, I really want to explore more about this. I don't know anything about it. I didn't know anyone that openly admitted having it. So whereas pretty much all the other subjects, it wasn't that difficult to find anyone to match with all the other subjects, because between us, we knew like people that covered everything. And this was the one area that we didn't have covered. So it was really great that we were able to get you on to explain more about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you for asking me. Yeah, there's no one talking about it, and that's the thing. I don't want to do anything that someone's already doing, and that was why I started a sex podcast, because I was like, nobody needs a sex podcast from a straight white cis male. No one wants to hear that, but no one else was doing it, and the other sort of male-led podcasts that were about sex were all a bit seedy, and it kind of felt like they'd done it to talk to porn stars and flirt with them, except Dan Savage podcast is amazing, but the other ones that I looked into, I was like, ugh. So yeah, I think someone needs to talk about it, and I really don't want it to be me. There'll be someone that's a lot smarter and more articulate that will come along eventually and talk about it, but until then I'll do it. But yeah, and one thing as well is there's a few people talking about sex addictions, but they also have drug and drink addiction problems as well that kind of get tied into it, which is really interesting and like really good to listen to. Russell Brand being one of them, there's a bunch of people doing it, but I haven't seen anyone who is talking a lot about just sex addiction on its own. And especially with my kind of ties to, self-validation, I think it's really important, because every bit of counseling I've done, I've had a lot of counseling in my time, has always tied back to self-validation and kind of feeling good within yourself. So it's something that we all should be more aware of, because even if you're not a sex addict, you might have underlying problems that are manifesting in a different way. And I just think everyone should get therapy. I think it should be like on the NHS. We should get it once a month. We should be forced to, because I think it's great. So
I say that so many times. Everyone should be in some sort of therapy. Just not because there's anything wrong, just because it doesn't hurt to unburden yourself. and
Definitely.
understand why
Yeah.
you do the things you do, I can imagine how much happier everyone would be
Definitely.
if they
Yeah.
could
And
just
some of the
talk things through.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the best counseling breakthroughs I've had have been in sessions where I'm in a really good mood and there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And then you talk through things and something comes up and you get to work on it. It's great.
Mm.
Like I feel like my mind has a six pack. My belly doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm very much like putting on the lockdown weight, but my
Yeah.
brain has a six pack. I feel like I work it out all the time and it's great. Like I feel so much stronger than I was, 6 months ago, 6 years
Mm.
ago, and I think, yeah, everyone should be looking into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. But thank you so much. Where would you like to be found? Where can our
Would I like to
listeners
be
and people? Yeah,
found?
I always have to ask because some people are like, "Nah, I'm all right. I don't want to tell anyone where I am."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, okay. So I live in. Here's my full address. I guess if you're interested in the podcast, Instagram. Let's talk about Sex Jamie, all one word. And yeah, if you want to reach out to me, that's a good place to do it. And yeah, I love talking about all this kind of stuff. And I find that whenever I chat about sex addiction in particular, it comes with a load more questions from people. So yeah, slide into my DMs on that. Let's talk about Sex Jamie or Jamie X Finch on Instagram, either of those. And yeah, that's it.
Wicked. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Yolanda. This was really good.
Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!